Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Footy Classified. 8 teams become 6 on the opening weekend of finals action. Plenty of news to get to, so let's welcome in our panel. One of the finest journalists in the country is Damien Barrett. Damo, great to have you again.
Good evening, Sam.
The man with all the medals, Jimmy Bartell. Welcome you, James.
Good evening, Sam.
And the 12-time leading goal kicker, the Essendon legend, Matthew Lord-Lordo. Great to have you as always.
Thanks, Sam. And Sam, one of the biggest selection dilemmas in the finals this year is Bobby Hill at Collingwood, and you've got an update tonight.
So this is fascinating, boys. We know he has played at AFL level just once in the last 10 weeks. That was against Brisbane back in round 21. He came on as the sub. He's played one game in the VFL in the practice match on the weekend and kicked 4. There's a man who has emerged as a crucial figure in all of this, and that is Eddie Betts, the man who dominated against Collingwood for so many games, against Carlton and then Adelaide. He's a crucial figure in the Indigenous community when it comes to footy. And it's my understanding that in the last few weeks, he put it on himself to reach out privately, just as a mate, and say, hey, how are you going? And that has led to a day-to-day mentorship, friendship. It's even resulted in Eddie being there at Collingwood training. And from what I can understand from Collingwood, although he's not involved in an official capacity, Eddie Betts really has played a huge part in allowing Lordo the conversation to move to, well, we just couldn't risk him, to, well, if he puts in 2 weeks of solid training here, this guy's a chance.
Yeah, whether he gets back in or not, how good is that from Eddie Betts? Just the care and the love he has for somebody like Bobby Hill and all the Indigenous players within the game.
Did it with Tyson Stengel when he was at Geelong, has worked with Jamara Ugle-Hagan, or at least tried to. So it's not the first player he's done it for, but completely off his own back.
And Eddie Betts never got to be a premiership player, so Bobby Hill already is. He's a Norm Smith medalist, but they're so hard to get to, and I'm sure Eddie's imparting on him, saying you never know if another opportunity is going to come. So you now need to, Damo, get in there, give it your best shot to try and force your way back in, because he'll have the biggest regrets of all time if he's not part of it.
You've been strong as recently as even this show last week, saying that your reading of this situation was one that could not have him possibly come back in. Does this give it hope?
Well, it gives a bit more hope, I suppose, but Eddie Betts isn't going to be the final answer. It's going to be what he's showing them on the training track, and I think he has to. There's not many opportunities to play. The odd scratch match is worth probably 5% of what an AFL game is. So one game in 10 weeks. Yes, he's far more talented than what's out there, but I'd go the match-hardened players over what he's doing.
And look, this is great that he did get this hit out on the weekend, but it was an arranged, soft game between two clubs that weren't even part of the system. Jimmy, if they don't make a decision to play him in the prelim final, does that really matter for the year? I mean, I say that because if they get through into a grand final, do you have this whole conversation still going on in grand final week?
I think you do, Damo, and I think if he keeps fronting up to training and performing well, and whenever we've heard Collingwood players speak, it feels like building the trust of the group, and by doing that is training well, it is scratch matches, performing really well, it's fronting back up, it's backing up, because what happens if a small forward goes down in a preliminary final? And I'm not wishing that upon any Collingwood player, but just hypothetically, if it's McClure, I'm just plucking one small forward, Bo, I'm not jinxing you, but he is the obvious small forward to come in next because of his talent. He has performed, as you mentioned, Lordo, Norm Smith medalist. So I still think the door is ajar only if he wins the trust back of the group, he trains hard and he's ready to go. You just never know what can happen. We've seen Marlon Pickett debut in a grand final. And
the door seems like it's ajar for Jeremy Howe as well. So that's the other dilemma. Now, Craig McRae said that they are risk takers. They just want them to be able to perform. You're big, though, from a coaching perspective on you can only risk so many going into finals. So if they both put their hand up, if Hill puts in 2 weeks of training, if Howe's knocking down the door, can you play both of them?
No, you can't. You can only play one. And I was big on that. It was Stringer or Hogan, not two of them. It's just one, particularly with playing in the same area on the ground. And also they'll bring in Kelly, but you can't have too many. So I think it'd be one or the other. And I think Howe's sort of like he's a leader. He's a leader at the club. They have so much love and respect for Jeremy Howe and what he brings. They feel lost at times. You know, I know when they lost their way, they said we were lost because Jeremy Howe wasn't there. So I think he's the one, if they were both fit. I know it's got to be role-based, but would get the nod.
Could you play Howe as the sub?
Well, I don't see why you couldn't, Sam. I think that's where Steele, who was the sub on the weekend, would be vulnerable. You go Jeremy Howe, we can play him back, we could play him forward. So he's very versatile to do that.
These are all big and bold selection calls required. They made one, didn't they, Craig McRae, going into this game against Adelaide by dropping Dan McStay and picking Mason Cox, who had a moment early, but equally he had better positive moments throughout the course of the game. And Sam, you're a massive advocate for this guy's inclusion, and it was validated in a very large way in the qualifying final.
It just seems like to me, Lordo and Jimmy, this guy structurally changes them. And it's a team that needed some sort of structural change, given the drop-off in form. Now, you can't say Coxing was the reason that they won, but what is the element that he brings to this team that others can't, Jimmy?
Well, when the game turns long, slow down the line, he's a very difficult man to outmark. At least you force the spoil, and guess who that brings into play? All those front and square players, the midfielders, Dacos, those small forwards that we highlighted. He also can pinch hit in the ruck a lot better than McStay. He actually gets his hand on the footy really well in centre bounces, Lauder.
And he gives, where I think Collingwood would be hard to be a small forward at, is Membry and Myercheck. They're not big, so they're more your lead-up types. So with Mason Cox, if you're a crummer, you know exactly where you're going to be going. So Mason doesn't take too many marks, but he gets his hands up. You know exactly where to get to the fall of the ball, and that's where he helped them straighten them up a fair bit.
The juxtaposition to that was that Adelaide's big men didn't perform.
No, and I'm a fan of Riley Thilthorpe, and everyone would be. Most are, because he was an All-Australian player, but he's someone that would have stared at the ceiling all night saying, what happened? Like, how did I get to this point? So this is one where should have taken the shot, didn't. But he's better than this. So this is another. So we saw him pull out the first time, not take the shot, and pull out a second time. So he's one that will want to work hard. These are the numbers. Yes, that this is about 40 games of football where there's only been 3 key forwards who have kicked 5 goals or more. But it's about, because the game becomes more defensive, it becomes harder, there's numbers back. But Phil Thorpe, I can't wait to see his first contest against the Hawks on Friday night after what he would have had to sit through in the review.
It is hard being a key forward and kicking big bags in big finals.
Yeah. I'm not going to fall with that.
First final in 2000, I think one man kicked 7, but we digress.